Three Demons Book 2, Chapter 20, A Familiar Rescue. As Rhea and Ivy ventured deeper into the ancient ruins, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The air thickened with dust and a sense of foreboding, making each step feel like a struggle. The passageways seemed to stretch endlessly, leading them further into the forgotten ruined labyrinth. Ivy's brows furrowed as she coughed, the dust beginning to irritate her throat. Rhea turned to her out of concern. "Let's go ahead and take a break. It's clear the air is starting to affect you badly." Ivy shook her head, her voice slightly muffled from the continuing inhaling of the dusty air. "No, it's okay. Besides, we really need to get to the others soon, before something ends up happening to them." Ivy attempts to convince Rhea to continue despite the clear pained look on her face. Rhea sighed, but before she could relent to Ivy's request, Ivy ends up falling unconscious from the air around them, almost hitting the floor before Rhea was able to catch her. Rhea realizes that the two of them can't continue if they could end up losing consciousness from breathing in the air around them. Rhea carries Ivy and sits her against the nearby wall as she sits down next to her, attempting to catch her breath in the process. Several hours have passed, and Ivy has finally regained consciousness. She looks around at her surroundings, trying to remember where she was at. She looks over at Rhea, who has her head down as she sits against the wall sleeping. Ivy freaks out at first, thinking Rhea had also passed out from lack of oxygen, but is relieved when she realizes she was just sleeping. However, Ivy did make enough noise to wake Rhea from her slumber. She stretches and yawns before looking over to Ivy. "Seems like you're finally woken up." Rhea smiles at Ivy after telling her that. Ivy smiles back at her before she feels something brush against her leg. She freaks out and looks down next to her, only to see a small blue crocodile with its scales colored black. Rhea tilts her head in curiosity. Why is a baby crocodile down here? Doesn't seem like it would make it down this far by itself. "It's all so blue! That's not normal!" Ivy screams out as the crocodile just looks back at her. Rhea leaned in closer, examining the crocodile with a mixture of amazement and wonder. "You're absolutely not wrong. There's something strange about this creature." The crocodile is frightened by Rhea getting close to it and immediately hides behind Ivy. This startles her as she's scared that the creature is so close to her. The crocodile poked its head out from behind Ivy and looked at her with the saddened eyes. Being very cautious, Ivy begins to reach out a hand towards the creature, her fingers just hovering above the crocodile's snout. To her surprise, however, the crocodile didn't show any signs of aggression, its small stature radiating a sense of gentleness instead. It doesn't seem dangerous," Ivy muttered, her voice a mix of astonishment and bewilderment. Rhea nodded in agreement, her expression softening as she continued to observe the creature in front of them. "I'm still wondering why it's here, though," she thought to herself. Suddenly, a large snake-like creature wraps around Rhea as it lifts her off the ground. "Rhea!" Ivy called out to her as the snake poked its head from the darkness, its body a deep dark brown to blend in with the dark ruins and its eyes an amber brown in color. The crocodile hides behind Ivy as she pulls out her whip. Before she's able to use it, though, the snake throws Rhea's body at Ivy, causing the two to collide with each other, just barely not falling on top of the crocodile below them. Gasping for breath, Ivy struggled to get back onto her feet, her eyes never leaving the snake-like creature that towered above them. Its elongated body undulates menacingly as Ivy could feel the weight of its intent bearing down upon her. Rhea groaned, slowly regaining her senses as she pushed herself up from the ground. "Ivy, watch out," as she managed to say, her voice strained from being tightly wrapped by the creature attacking them. Ivy's grip tightened around her whip as she began to take a step back, her heart pounding as she began to assess the situation. The crocodile, sensing the danger, retreated further behind Ivy as its small form trembled. The snake then lunged at Ivy. Ivy, being caught off guard, frozen in fear as the creature came closer to her. But before the creature was able to hurt Ivy, Rhea jumped in front of its range of attack, taking the brunt of the attack as the creature's teeth dig deep into her body. Rhea begins to cough up blood as she struggles to hold the creature back. The blood from the creature's bite begins to seep through her clothes. Ivy calls out for Rhea out of concern, but Rhea just turns her head back at her as she has a calculating smile on her face. She turns her head back towards the creature as she tightly grabs its skin. A bright red aura begins to surround Rhea's body as the creature begins to squirm away, but to no avail. Despite the pain Rhea is in, only being made worse as the creature's teeth that is inside of her begin moving inside of her the more the creature squirms. The creature begins to grow smaller and weaker, squirming less as Rhea continues to drain the creature of the liquids in its body. The body falls onto the ground, its teeth coming out of Rhea's body as she stands there breathing heavily from the pain. She turns to Ivy, giving her a pained smile in the process. "Oh my goodness, Rhea, are you okay?" Ivy asked, very concerned with Rhea's current condition. "I'll be fine, though I'm going to be out of commission for a bit." Rhea begins responding before her vision begins to double and become blurry. "What's going on? Why am I feeling like this? Wait," Rhea thinks to herself as she finally notices Ivy screaming out her name. She turns her head and sees the snake-like creature looming over her as it swings its tail at her, causing her to fly into the wall as she falls unconscious. Ivy looks horrified as she fixes her frightened expression at the beast in front of her. Apparently, the creature had shed its skin whilst Rhea was in the process of draining its body of liquids. This becoming apparent as Ivy notices the skin shedding lying on the ground. Ivy notices the gaze of the creature isn't fixated on her, but on the small crocodile next to her. The creature goes on to strike, but Ivy throws herself in its way, holding and protecting the small crocodile in her arms as the creature digs its teeth into her back. Ivy coughs up blood from the attack as the creature pulls away, making a noise akin to a mixture of hissing and growling at the two. Ivy sits up, something that has become very difficult as she looks down at the small creature. She smiles at it. It looks as if the small creature is saying something to her, but she is unable to make out what as she passes out next to the small crocodile. Ivy wakes up very panicked as she begins looking for both Rhea and the small crocodile. She is worried the creature had dragged them away somewhere. However, she quickly realizes that the wounds she sustained have disappeared. She sees Rhea lying diagonally across the room from her, and she also notices her wounds have disappeared as well. "Thank you." Ivy hears a gentle voice radiate next to her. She turns and sees a small girl standing there smiling at her, her hair covering most of her right eye, with half of it being black and the other half being blue, with a blue cowlick accompanying her hair. Her eyes are two different colors, her right eye being black and the other being blue. She wears a baggy pink dress, her legs and arms resembling that of black scales that go up until her knees and elbows. The more Ivy looks at the child in front of her, the more she begins to realize. "Are you?" Ivy asks as the child nods her head, confirming she is the small crocodile that she ran into. Eventually, Rhea ends up waking up after a while, seeing Ivy sitting next to her, smiling. "Wait, what happened? Did you take care of that creature?" Rhea asks, trying to put the pieces together, even going on to notice her wounds are being healed, or were healed. Suddenly, the little girl appears out of Ivy's bag, catching Rhea off guard. "Who's that?" The little girl gives Rhea an upset look. "You already forgot about me?" Ivy goes on to explain that the little girl is the small crocodile they found earlier. Rhea looks dumbfounded as the little girl explains what happened. "You see, I'm what you call a familiar spirit. I'm here to keep those under my protection on the correct path. When you two lost consciousness from that beast, the need to protect you allowed me to access my true form. There I was able to dispatch of the creature and heal you of your wounds in the process." Ivy goes on to say in a very excited tone, "Turns out she's here because she's my familiar spirit. Isn't that great, Rhea?" Rhea giggles at Ivy's excitement. "It sure is. So, what's her name? Have you given her one?" Ivy nods. "Her name is Cleo." End of chapter 20.